The San Francisco 49ers 2024 season was nothing short of disappointing. So in this video, let's go ahead and do my mock-off season for the San Francisco 49ers. But if you guys do go on to enjoy the video, hit the like and subscribe button. Let's hop into it. So as you can see, we're going to be doing everything that the San Francisco 49ers are going to be doing this offseason. We're going to begin by managing their finances in the team assets portion of the video. That's going to be very interesting. Then we're going to talk about some of the team free agents on this team, who we're going to re-sign and who we're going to let walk. We'll then talk about some positional team needs. Then we'll do my free agency plan, and then lastly we'll be finishing the video off with 2 3-round mock drafts. With that said, let us begin with the team assets portion of the video, and right now it's actually not that bad. They currently have $44 million in cap space to go along with 7 draft picks, which does seem fine, but truth be told, when you look past 2025, you look towards 2026, that is really when the scary numbers start to come into play. When you look at some of the contracts they need to look to extend, you're talking about major contracts that are going to cost this team a crap ton of money. So yes, they have $44 million in cap space, but I am extremely limited with what we can actually do when it comes to like free agency and giving out big, massive contracts. With that said, though, I did mention some extensions. Those extensions we are going to be giving out is, of course, to Brock Purdy. This has been kind of the ultimate question about when he's going to get this extension, how much it's going to be due. If you do extend him, it does open up $3 million in 2025, which is of course nice. Now, in terms of what type of contract he's actually going to be getting for his extension, I have a feeling that he is going to want every single penny that Dak Prescott is getting. So Dak Prescott signed around a 4-year, $240 million deal, and I expect Brock Purdy to get something along those lines, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, but for now, I'm just going to assume it's going to be $240 million spread over 4 years. We're also going to be giving out a contract extension to George Kittle. I'm thinking like a 2-year, $34 million extension. He's going to get paid as a top tight end in the league, only for 2 more years. He's a little bit older. By extending him, that actually does open up around $10.5 million in 2025. Now, restructuring contracts we're going to avoid because this team is getting a little bit older, and it just does not make sense to push back contracts in future years because this team is already kind of screwed moving forward. So I'm not going to look to restructure any deals. I think that we have enough money already open this offseason. But to save our ass in future years, and honestly even this year, we are going to make a couple of extra cuts. Those cuts being Javon Hargrave, who is going to be a post June 1st cut, which will open up around $2 million. We're also going to be post June 1st cutting Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel, unfortunately, just cannot really go out there and make the same plays that he used to. I will also say I kind of think he got screwed over from the fact that Brandon Ayuk was not out there. But even when he was asked to do things that he typically used to be able to do, Deebo Samuel was just not able to do so. His body looks to be kind of giving out on him. He doesn't take the offseason as serious as what you would like for him to do, and he's going to cost you a crap ton of money. So by post June 1st cutting him, we're saving our ass this year while also probably saving our ass in future years. To open up just a little bit of extra cap space, we're also going to be cutting Yetur Gross-Matos, which if we cut him pre-June 1st will gain us an additional $3 million. So after extending Purdy and Kittle and after cutting Hargrave, Samuel, and Gross-Matos, we currently went from $44 million to about $67.5 million in open cap space. Now, as I mentioned earlier, that is a big number, but when you look at 2026, like prior to any of these cuts, they only had $17 million in cap space. So when you take into account that you're going to have $60 million going to Brock Purdy, $17 million going to George Kittle, and sure, the cuts are definitely going to help us out, and you'll figure out some different players to restructure, and so they'll have money, but you can already kind of see how it's going to be really rough in 2026 to actually do anything financially. So we can't give out too many long-term deals, so just kind of keep that in mind as we're going through this process. But that brings us to the team free agents portion of the video, and well, this team does have a lot of free agents, some in which we're going to try to bring back, others who maybe aren't as important. So in terms of some of their free agents, you're looking at guys like Brandon Allen, Josh Dobbs, Elijah Mitchell, Chris Conley, Eric Saubert, Aaron Banks, Ben Bartch, John Feliciano, Jalen Moore, Kevin Givens, Javon Hargrave, who we already talked about, Devondre Campbell, Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, Dre Greenlaw, Travarius Ward, Rock Yassin, Isaac Yiadom, Tashawn Gibson, Talanoa Hufanga, and even one of their punters. That is a lot of key players, and so we're going to have to try to bring back a couple of these guys while also letting some really good players leave in free agency. In terms of who I'm going to prioritize paying, we're going to begin by bringing back Dre Greenlaw. I do think Dre Greenlaw will be coming back on like a 1-year deal to kind of prove what he still has in the tank. I would make him probably the biggest priority. I also think that he might be the biggest wild card when it comes to free agency, because if he comes back healthy, playing like his former self, we're talking about probably a top 15, top 10 linebacker in the league. But of course, coming off of a season where he didn't didn't play much because of that torn Achilles he suffered in the Super Bowl. This is somebody who you just don't know what you're going to get. But if he can return to form, which is what we're hoping he can do, bringing him back on a 1-year, $6 million deal is definitely worth the money. It's not a long-term investment, which does fit into my plan. And if he does play great this season, okay, then we'll renegotiate next offseason to give him a more long-term contract. But until we see it on the field, I don't think this team should be giving out a long-term contract to Dre Greenlaw. Hopefully other teams will follow suit, which I do imagine they will do so. And hopefully there is some loyalty to 49ers. So we will see if Dre Greenlaw signs it, but I think that if he does sign it, a 1-year, $6 to $7 million deal is totally fine. Unfortunately, we're going to have to let go some of their starters, guys like Aaron Banks, Talanoa Hufanga, Charvarius Ward. I would love to bring back Ward, but we all know the circumstances, so I don't think he's going to be coming back. Talanoa Hufanga is an interesting player because obviously a few years ago, we're talking about somebody who was one of the best players, arguably in the NFL. He was having one of the best safety seasons we've seen in the past couple years, and then unfortunately, injuries, inconsistent play, and just not looking like the same guy that's kind of derailed his career. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be trying to prioritize bringing him back. We need players who can go out there and make sure that we can have them playing all year long. We don't want a repeat of 2024. But in terms of starters, I think the only starter we're probably bringing back is Dre Greenlaw. The rest of the guys I want to bring back are rotational pieces, special teams guys like Isaac Yiadom on a 2-year, $4 million deal, Ben Barch on a 2-year, $4 million deal as well, Kevin Givens on a 1-year, $3 million deal, Jalen Moore on a 2-year, $3 million deal, and Chris Conley on a 1-year, $2 million deal. Unfortunately, this team just doesn't have the finances to realistically go out there and bring back a bunch of their starters because those guys probably want long-term deals. And if they want short-term deals, it's just going to be a lot of money to give to players who we really cannot rely upon. I also do want to bring back Joshua Dobbs on a 1-year, $5 million deal as well. He is just somebody who I view as being a good backup moving forward. And for Brock Purdy, it would be nice to make sure we have somebody who can play long-term beside him. So with that said, let's now go ahead and move over to the team needs portion of the video. Unfortunately, we just couldn't bring back a lot of players, so now we have a bunch of more needs in free agency and potentially in the draft. So in terms of some positional needs, I do think this team has a number of issues they need to look to address. The biggest and most pressing issue is going to be the offensive line. I think you need a long-term answer at left tackle. I think you feel okay about Colton McKivitz at right tackle, but you need a long-term answer behind Trent Williams. So potentially you could be looking in the draft to find your long-term answer for left tackle. Your interior of the offensive line is also a little bit depleted after free agency. You really don't have a starting caliber left guard. Ben Barch could potentially compete for the starting job, but I don't feel terribly confident in him long-term. Jake Brendo's at center, who I think I can live with, but if I can find an upgrade, I definitely would like to do so. And then Dominic Puny, obviously the rookie, had a really good rookie season, so you feel pretty good about that, but you're getting older with that left tackle position, and you need interior offensive linemen quite badly. Both the draft and free agency will probably be spent finding some solutions there. Next is going to be a cornerback one. Right now, your starting corners are technically going to be Renardo Green and Diamondre Lenore and Isaac Yiadom, which I think you feel not very confident in. So I think ideally I'd like to bring in some veteran leadership in the free agency and then potentially take in a cornerback either round 1, 2, or 3 in the NFL draft. Next is going to be a defensive tackle. Right now, your starters at defensive tackle are going to be Kevin Givens and Malik Collins, which I don't think I want to do a whole bunch of that next year. That just does not sound very good. Javon Hargrave, obviously we let leave in free agency. He hasn't been terribly productive here, so it wasn't that big of a loss. But if we can find an upgrade in free agency, I would definitely be planning to bring him in. Next is a safety. You do have Malik Mustafa and Jair Brown, who I think you feel okay with. But if you can find, again, kind of a veteran who can step in, play a couple snaps here and there, I definitely do think that this team should be looking to do so. Again, we're trying to go all in to win a championship in these next few years, so I don't think you can sit around and wait for players to develop too much. Obviously, you don't want to stunt their growth, but by bringing in some veterans who can be rotational pieces, it would make sense to bring in a safety. I also do think potentially bringing in an extra wide receiver, probably looking for like a wide receiver 3 or 4 in the draft, would make some sense, but that's probably more of like a 3rd or a 4th round pick type of guy. But with that said, let's now go ahead and hop into my free agency plan. Now, before we actually get into my free agency plan, I do want to again put you guys in the mindset of where I'm at with this team. This team does not have long-term financial stability in 2026, 2027 because of the massive contracts they've already handed out to so many good players. So in this free agency plan, I really targeted only 1 to 2 year contracts to veteran players that are going to be willing to take on a 1 to 2 year deal. So for a lot of these contracts, I'm not going to be giving out a 3-year, 4-year deal because it just doesn't make sense for the 49ers to be handing out long-term deals when you have the pending contract of Brock Purdy, George Kittle, the of course already massive contracts of guys like Brandon Ayuk and Fred Warner and so many other good players. This team does not have financial leeway in these next few years to really be giving out massive contracts. So keep that in mind as we go through this. But at the same time, I wanted to bring in players who could help this team win now without taking up too much of their cap space long term. So that brought me to what I think is a pretty fun free agency class, where I got a mix of some younger players who are looking for prove-it deals, while also bringing in some veterans on one-year deals to kind of give them a shot to win a championship in their career. We're going to begin by bringing in a few veterans. We're going to begin by bringing in Justin Simmons on a one-year $6 million deal. This is probably the biggest name out of all of my free agents. Obviously, everyone knows Justin Simmons. He was incredible for so many years. Last year went to the Atlanta Falcons and was good last year, but just wasn't his typical dominant self. I still do think he has a lot of football still left in him, but I want to say that he's probably only going to continue to get 1 to 2 year deals for the remainder of his career, more than likely. For the sake of this video, I followed what PFF was projecting. I'm going to be giving him a 1-year $6 million deal. He's going to be playing alongside guys like Malik Mustafa and of course Jair Brown. I view him as being somebody who can start for us, who I think will start for us, while also allowing some of these younger players to be rotational bodies in that room. By bringing in Justin Simmons, you're allowing him the opportunity to compete for a championship, while also, you know, giving some guidance to some of your younger players in that secondary. Sticking to the secondary here and sticking to veteran leadership, we're going to be bringing in Stephon Gilmore on a 1-year $6 million deal. A lot of the same principles I said about Justin Simmons also do apply to Stephon Gilmore. Stephon Gilmore has been such an incredible player throughout his career. Even into his now 30s, he's still playing at a fairly high level. Obviously, he's no longer the defensive player of the year that he used to be, but he is still a quality corner that you think that could still play a couple snaps here and there. He is more than likely going to be your cornerback 2, as you're going to allow Bernardo Green and some of these other guys to develop. I also do want to look into this year's draft to potentially find another guy to add into that room, but by bringing in Stephon Gilmore, you're getting somebody who you can view as being a mentor to some of your younger guys who can also go out there and play a lot of snaps and, you know, give you high quality reps. I'm going to stick to the defensive side of things here. We're going to bring in Azeez Ojulari on a 1-year $5 million kind of prove it deal. Azeez Ojulari hasn't really been given the ultimate green light with the New York Giants yet, but when he has been out there and playing at a good level, we're talking about somebody that can get you some sacks. He can rack up sacks. He can get you some cleanup points. This is somebody who is kind of just a pass rushing guy, not much of a run defender, which I don't think this team necessarily needs. But because we let go of your Yetur Gross-Matos, I wanted to find another piece to add to this defensive line. Obviously, Nick Bosa, Leonard Floyd, you feel pretty good about your 2 pass rushers, but by bringing in an Azeez Ojulari, you have another option, rotational piece. He will not be a starter to start the season off, but he will be somebody who gets 400, 500 snaps a season and hopefully can get you about 6, 7, 8 sacks a year. We're also going to stick to the defensive line here, and this is going to be one of only 2 2-year contracts. I'm going to be handing out a 2-year $18 million deal to DJ Jones. Now, DJ Jones doesn't really give you too much as a pass rusher, but he can give you, you know, the occasional juice. He can get you a couple sacks there, but this is somebody who is just a really sturdy body who can anchor down and be a good run defender for your team. At a 2-year $18 million deal, it's not a super long-term investment, and I do believe you could probably restructure the deal next year if you need to open up cap space. DJ Jones is a fine player. He's not going to be a Pro Bowler nor an All-Pro, but he is going to be a quality run defender who can give you a little bit something from a pass rushing perspective. Now, moving back to the offensive line, where I want to put in a little bit of work by adding in some veterans who I think can play while also being rotational pieces, we're going to be bringing in Lucas Patrick on a 1-year $4 million deal. Now, last year with the New Orleans Saints, he played around 550 snaps, and I thought he was pretty good throughout most of the year. Was he an All-Pro, Pro Bowl level player? No, but that's why we're not bringing him in to be an All-Pro, Pro Bowl level player. He played very good. He allowed 0 sacks and had a pass blocking rate of 98.4 and only 3 penalties, only 10 pressures allowed all season long, over 500 snaps. He is probably going to be competing for that left guard position with Ben Barch. He's an older player, so this is not somebody who we think is going to be a long-term solution, but again, we're looking for pieces who can play now, help us win a championship now, while not costing us too much. Lucas Patrick made some sense to do so. Lucas Patrick is also not somebody who we're paying a crap ton of money to, so it's not like we owe him the starting position. Ben Barch can go in there, compete for the job, and if he wins it, then great that we could start Ben Barch, but if he doesn't, I do think Lucas Patrick is more than capable of being a starter for this team moving forward. I also wanted to bring in Coleman Shelton on a 2-year $10 million deal. Now, Coleman Shelton does get a lot of criticism from Bears fans, and in some ways, rightfully so. He does have the occasional rep where he is not playing at a high level, but this was somebody who was calling out a lot of things for that Bears offense. He did not miss a snap. He was reliable, dependable, did a lot of things for Caleb Williams, and I think he could do a lot of things for Brock Purdy. This is somebody who can play left guard, right guard, or center, so you would have some depth there with him. I think I would probably have him as my starting center right now, but of course, you obviously want to let Jake Brendel compete for the job, so I do think that there would be some competition with the center room. But if you feel okay with Brendel, then Coleman Shelton can just be your backup. But if you feel confident in Shelton, then Brendel can be the backup, or you can, move around the offensive line however you want to do so. By bringing in Coleman Shelton, I just have a reliable option in the middle who can add depth or could be a starter. All of a sudden, your revamped offensive line will be Trent Williams, Lucas Patrick, either Brendel or Coleman Shelton at center, Dominic Puny, and then Colton McKivitz. If healthy, that seems to be a pretty good offensive line. But that is going to be it for my free agency plan after we give out contracts to Justin Simmons, Stephon Gilmore, Azeez Ojulari, DJ Jones, Lucas Patrick, and Coleman Shelton. We went from $46 million all the way now down to $11 million. With this open cap space, you could be looking to potentially add some leftover depth options. Maybe you want to bring in another defensive tackle in free agency. Maybe you want to bring in another wide receiver, another running back, another quarterback, whatever may be the case, you can obviously do so. But for the sake of the video, I'm not going to bore you guys with a bunch of very small name guys who are going to be on special teams. So now go ahead and hop into our 2-3 round mock drafts. All right, but as you can see, we are on the PFF mock draft simulator. We are obviously at pick number 11. They do have 2 third-round picks, so we can do a lot of damage in this year's draft. And right now, with the way the board has fallen, I'm kind of looking at Kelvin Banks, Josh Simmons, Walter Nolan is also available, though 11 might be a tad bit early on him. Yeah, I think I'm probably going to go with the offensive tackle here. I mean, Ashton Jeanty would be nice if you're not looking at Christian McCaffrey as a long-term answer, but I just don't think, realistically speaking, you're going to take a running back here. I think you ideally want to find somebody who can maybe be a swing tackle to start off his career, kind of like what Olu Fashanu did with the New York Jets. But inevitably, when an injury does happen on this offensive line, whether it is Trent Williams or whether it is Colton McKivitz, you want to have a younger option who can be the guy moving forward. Trent Williams is not getting any younger, and I would not be surprised if this is his last year in the NFL, so you want to have an answer at left tackle moving forward. Right now, the question is, do you prefer Josh Simmons? Do you prefer Armand Membu or Kelvin Banks? I am personally highest on Kelvin Banks because I think he is the best pure pass blocker in this draft, but he needs to develop and become a better run blocker, which might be a bit of a red flag for a Kyle Shanahan system offense, but I do think Kelvin Banks could definitely fix that part of his game. It's not like he is fundamentally flawed. It just really is a more of a technique issue, which I do think that the offensive line coach for the 49ers could definitely fix. I'm going to go ahead and take Kelvin Banks here. I view him as the highest upside guy who is likely going to stick at tackle, but I think could also potentially move inside to play guard if you need him to in a pinch. All right, we are back up at pick 43, and Jahad Campbell is on the board, which I find to be really interesting. I don't know if he's going to be available in an actual live mock draft situation. He might be, but I would be a little bit surprised if he was. Unfortunately, a lot of the top corners are off the board. I was really hoping that either Trey Amos, Jahdae Barron, or Siobhan Revel would fall here, which unfortunately they did not, and I wouldn't be too surprised if they did not either, by the way. So that's leaving me with guys like Azariah Thomas, who I am a big fan of. I think he's a really good corner. Only gave up 141 yards last year, 17 receptions, had some really good grades, all this and that, but taking him at pick 43 could be a smidge early. Same thing with Maxwell Harrison, who I have seen some first round buzz for, but I don't think I'll take him in the second round, at least not this early. Darian Porter's also on the board, but we're talking about somebody who's already 24 years of age, was a redshirt senior. As you can see by his snap count, really did not play up until really 2024 when he got his most snaps of his career, which is a little bit of a red flag, but he played so well that obviously he's getting a lot of buzz out there. Played a little bit on the outside, played a little bit box, played a little bit here and there, but really more of an outside corner. Run defense grade 36.8, which is just terrible. But yeah, I don't know. I think I'm going to try to avoid Darian Porter here. I mean, Jahad Campbell's on the board here, and it's really interesting. Obviously, Fred Warner is going to be your long-term answer at that linebacker position, but if Drake Greenlaw doesn't work out, who's going to be realistically your answer at that position? Obviously, you have a couple players who potentially could step in and make some plays, but Jahad Campbell is a difference maker, in my opinion. He really is. I'm also looking at guys like Omar Norman Lott. Jalen Walker's on the board, but he's probably not going to be a second-round pick. Derek Harmon is also on the board, and in fact, I think I might end up going Derek Harmon here. He has gotten some first-round buzz, but I do view him as being more of an early second-round pick. Kind of similar to Darian Porter, a bit of a late riser, though he was good in 2023. 2024 is really when he stepped up and really became an excellent player. Good run defender, good size, 6'5", 310, can also give you a little bit of juice on the pass rushing elements too. I think if you go offensive line and defensive line, you're beefing up both your line of scrimmages. So I'm going to go with Derek Harmon here, even though I heavily did consider taking Jahad Campbell. We're ultimately going to go ahead and take Derek Harmon here to be a part of a defensive line room that should hopefully be a lot better. All right, pick 75 is on the board, and Jonas Savania is also still on the board, and I would love this pick here, but I just feel like we did so much to the offensive line already by adding in Kelvin Banks, adding in Coleman Shelton and Lucas Patrick, that taking Jonas Savania wouldn't really benefit us us too much in 2024 or even 2025, I should say. Lathan Ransom is here, who I think third round is about right for him. He is more likely going to play more of your free safety role, but potentially could play strong safety as well. If you don't feel terribly confident in Jair Brown, maybe you can put him there, but I feel okay with him. Isaiah Bond is on the board here, and I actually kind of like what Isaiah Bond potentially could bring to this team. Brandon Ayuk, concerns with his injuries. Jawan Jennings isn't much of like a speedster, but he's pretty fast. And then, of course, Ricky Pearsall. I like the idea of taking Isaiah Bond, but I don't know if that's necessarily a priority pick right now. Let's look at corner here. Azariah Thomas is still on the board. I don't know if he's going to be here in the third round, but he's here on PFF, so we're going to go ahead and take Azariah Thomas. I love Azariah Thomas. I do think he's a hell of a player. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Renardo Green, I believe, also went to Florida State, so maybe there's some connection there. I think Azariah Thomas is a hell of a player. I think he should be at least a second round pick, but if he does fall somehow, some way to the third round, I would not think twice about taking Azariah Thomas. Really good technique, can play zone and man, good size, good speed, good fluidity in his hips. Needs to kind of work on some technique issues and different things like that, but I like Azariah Thomas a lot. Pick 99 is on the board here, and I don't really know what other positions of need this team really needs to look to address. I mean, you feel pretty confident that you have different answers for a lot of different positions. Maybe I kind of want to go back to that linebacking room and potentially look at adding some piece here, like a Barrett Carter, whose draft stock has potentially fallen a little bit, but I could see him falling into becoming a third round pick. I also really like Kobe King and Jack Kaiser, but third round could be a little bit early for them. I think I might take Barrett Carter here. Again, 2024 wasn't his best season. In fact, you kind of can look at 2022 was arguably his best year, and then 2023 and 2024 it kind of fell off a tad bit. But if you believe that he can give you some snaps as a true traditional linebacker, I think maybe potentially you would do so. My thought process behind this is you just don't know what you're getting in Dre Greenlaw with the injury, but you obviously have Fred Warner, who you know what you're getting from. Barrett Carter has, I think, good enough tape to warrant a third round pick. I mean, you could also potentially double dip at offensive line by taking a Jared Wilson here. You could go safety and Jonas Sanker or some other players. Ashton Gillette is also here, who I think I might be talking myself into Ashton Gillette here. I'm a big fan of Gillette. I think that he needs to work on a lot of things, but you know, being a rotational defensive line that can give some development potentially. But I think I'm going to go linebacker. I just think linebacker is a bigger need. Barrett Carter is going to be my pick here. He can learn behind Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw and potentially be the guy moving forward. So as you can see, this is my first of our 2 3-round mock drafts. Let's now go ahead and hop into the next one. All right, but as you can see, basically the exact same draft order as the first one. We're back on the board here, pick 11. Last time we took Kelvin Banks, so I think this time let's mix it up by taking the corner first here. Now PFF is going to have Benjamin Morrison as their top ranked corner, but I would have Jahdae Barron as my personal, well, I shouldn't say top ranked, second top ranked corner, depending on what you view Travis Hunter as. But Will Johnson's probably going to be your number 1 corner off the board. My number 2/3 corner, wherever you want to put Travis Hunter, would be Jahdae Barron. I love Benjamin Morrison, but you didn't see much from him in 2024 because of injury, and that injury is going to be lingering the entire offseason. If he's okay and can perform at the draft combine, that will tell us a lot about Benjamin Morrison, but until I see it on the field, I'm going to continue to take Jahdae Barron before him. I've seen Jahdae Barron go as high as potentially within the top 10, and I'm not going to shy away from it. I know PFF has him ranked 30th, and I know everyone's going to be like, whoa, why would you take Jahdae Barron top 15? I think he is worthy of a top 15 pick. Can play nickel, can play slot, can play outside, can play safety. This is somebody who is going to work in the NFL. He's going to be a good player. If he doesn't work at outside corner, put him at safety. If he doesn't work at safety, put him in the nickel. He will work out somewhere with this team. And when you're talking about a defense that could just use a top tier talent like a Jahdae Barron, I think it makes so much sense to add him here. Some other players I consider were obviously Josh Simmons. Mike Green is also available. Michael Williams, I believe, is also here too. But I'm going to go with the corner. I think corner is a bigger need for this team, so I'm not going to shy away from it. I also did want to show love to Walter Nolan too. I like Walter Nolan, but 11th is a little bit crazy for me. So I'm taking Jahdae Barron. I don't care what nobody says. 30th ranked is a little bit too low for him. If you feel confident in getting Jahdae Barron and trading back, do so, but I have him on the board there, so I'm going to go ahead and take him. We're back up at pick 43, and Tyler Booker's on the board here. He's gotten some first round buzz for sure, but I could see him potentially falling to the second round. I don't think it's completely out of this world. I just don't think that I would want to guard here in this situation. I think I'm more looking at offensive tackle, and Donovan Jackson's on the board, but I view him more than likely sticking into guard here. Ariante Ursary is also on the board here. Could benefit from development behind Trent Williams, and this is a huge dude, 6'6", 330 pounds, so I might take him, but you know, he didn't have the greatest year in 2024. 2023 was sort of his breakout year. 2024 wasn't bad, but it could have been better. I think I'll take Ariante Ursary, who's going to develop behind Trent Williams. I think learning behind him could really benefit him. And again, kind of similar like Kelvin Banks, he can be your swing tackle for a year or two, and then once Williams does hang it up, Ariante Ursary could be your guy. Ursary was somebody also who was a first-round projected player at one point, so do keep that in mind. All right, back up at pick 75 here, and now I'm going to go ahead and look at adding potentially something on the defensive line, look primarily on the defensive interior. Deion Walker's on the board, more of your traditional just run stuffer who has a lot of developing to do. Huge human being. 6'6", 345. I mean, massive. He's still only less than 21 years of age, but has a lot of technique issues. Just stands straight up, can get his pad. His leverage is terrible. Jordan Phillips, JJ Piguse. I don't think I'm taking top 75, so we'll look elsewhere. Josiah Stewart is on the board here. Had a really nice breakout year in 2024, although he was good in 2023, but 2024, 9 sacks, 91.2 overall grade, 27.3 pass rush grade, 8.3% run stop grade, 21 years of age, 6'1", 245. Probably wants to put on a little bit of some extra weight. Michigan's defensive line was really good all year long, even though the offense was abysmal. The defensive line was great all year long. I think Josiah Stewart would actually make a little bit of some sense here because you have Nick Bosa, you have Leonard Floyd, you brought in Azeez Ojulari. Adding that other rotational body would make some sense. We're going to go ahead and take Josiah Stewart here. Back up at pick 99, and I don't see anyone who's really like speaking to me here, which is unfortunate. We could go Barrett Carter again. I'm just not seeing anybody who's like just screaming off the board who I would just like, I would love to take him. Maybe this is a trade down situation potentially. Do you go? No, you can't go quarterback. You just paid Brock Purdy, but I was thinking maybe more of like a backup option. Emory Jones is on the board still. You could potentially move him inside to play tackle. It was thought to be at one point a starting caliber first round pick, and then he had an abysmal 2024 season. Jared Wilson's on the board here. If you don't feel confident in Lucas Patrick and Ben Barch and Coleman Shelton and Jake Brendel, maybe you bring in a Jared Wilson. I just feel like you're putting a bit of a logjam there personally. I know we took Jahdae Barron first round, but Kobe Bryant is on the board here. So is Zay Alexander, who at one point was thought to be potentially a second round pick, but has kind of fallen off the board for PFF. But I could see him still clocking in as a third round pick. I'm kind of tempted here to go Kobe Bryant. 80.9 PFF grade, was really good in run defense, 91.3, only allowed a 54% completion percentage, 9 forced incompletions, 12 coverage stops. Did give up some passing yardages, 409 yards allowed, but I think Kobe Bryant could be something interesting. I kind of think maybe with how good he is as a run defender, I kind of wonder if potentially you can move him inside to play nickel or safety. 6'1", 175, needs to put on a little bit of weight. I think we'll take Kobe Bryant here because I think there is some flexibility potentially with him as a player. All right, but this is our second of our 2 3-round mock drafts. I don't care what PFF says. F is just not realistic. PFF is a lot lower on Jahdae Barron than I am, so take that as you will. But with that said, if you guys did enjoy the video, hit the like and subscribe button. Love you guys. Peace.